Somebody run this?
I think he said it was ready. That's what
Bring it all the way up there.
Robbie said.
Robbie, you set it up?
Yeah, set up. Let's see. Yeah, sure.
You didn't use the RMCP itself. That would be private.
No, like I use the Mevo app to do that with. Like if I put it in.
So if you only this guy you can check it out.
Hold on, I'm gonna ask my wife to see if she can see it. Okay, 1 second. Share it with her.
Oh, not this one. So
Yeah.
see this.
Yes, sir. Welcome back. Salam.
So everything goes in. Yeah, I already put it in there.
All right. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So welcome everyone. Jazakallah khairan for coming for another installment of our weekly series, Study the Sermon, where we, as you all know, we revisit the sermon. We talk about a topic in a little bit additional detail. And we offer you, the audience, the opportunity to contribute to the discussion in a meaningful way, whether that be through questions, feedback, your own contributions and anecdotal experiences with the topic, and even critiquing the khutbah if you so choose. And the topic of the khutbah, the title that we gave to it was When Good Men Do Nothing. When good men do nothing. And the main idea, what we really were trying to achieve today, was we basically wanted to encourage everyone to re-examine and reassess our individual and collective understanding of what makes a good person a good person. And it was basically a call to turn inwards and ask ourselves a few questions. So again, our attempt, the main idea was to encourage a reassessment, a re-examination, a re-evaluation of our individual and collective understanding of what makes a good person. And basically, we wanted everybody to turn inwards and ask themselves. Number one, how does Islam define a good person? What characteristics does Islam indicate a good person must have? We should know this. We as Muslims should know this, and that should be the standard. Number two, in light of that, we should ask ourselves, am I a good person? We should hold ourselves up to that standard. So once we know what the standard is, what does Islam say are the characteristics that, when assembled, make a person a good person? Once we know that, our next step should be to hold ourselves up to the light of that standard and weigh ourselves against that standard, gauge ourselves by that standard. And then the last question, are the people whose goodness we have taken for granted actually good? This is another very, very, very important question, and it was really something that I kept trying to hint at in the khutbah. Are the people that we have taken their goodness for granted, are they actually good people? Because that goes again with that reassessing and reevaluating what makes a person a good person. And if we're off base in answering that question, then everything else is going to be skewed. So the khutbah, it's centered around a hadith. Does anybody remember what that hadith was? A very famous hadith. We mentioned it a lot because it's so important. Hadith which is central to Islam. In fact, Nawawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his Arba'in Nawawiyya, he assembled more than 40. He actually assembled roughly 52 ahadith, but he assembled the ahadith which he deemed, and many scholars after him deemed, and even before him, I should say, deemed to be the most important hadith, the most essential hadith, and the centralmost hadith in Islam. And one of them is this hadith. Like this hadith is, there's a canon of statements of the Prophet that are the foundation of our entire religion, and this is one of them. Does anybody remember what the hadith was? Go ahead. Keep it. فبقلبي
وهذا
وذلك
أضعف الإيمان.
أحسنت. So it's the hadith of Sa'id. So it's the hadith of Sa'id al-Khudri, collected by Muslim, in which the Prophet said what means, whoever amongst you sees someone doing something wrong, then let him physically put a stop to it with his hand. And if he cannot, then let him stop it with his tongue. We said that means let him openly articulate his disapproval of the evil deed. And if he can't do that, if he's unable to even do that, then let him do so with his heart, the Prophet said. And we said that means let him be filled with righteous indignation and distance himself from the wrongdoing and disassociate himself from the wrongdoers. And the Prophet went on to say that is the least of faith. So that was the hadith that the khutbah kind of centered around. And we basically summarized the meaning by saying that the meaning of the hadith is when bad things happen, good men are supposed to act. That's the basic meaning of the hadith. When bad things happen, when bad things, sins are committed in front of someone and you witness it, you're supposed to act. How do you act? Well, it depends on your capacity, as we're going to see. Then we went on to talk about what happens when people don't act. Right? What happens when people don't do what the Prophet said we're supposed to do, which basically refers to, or is an indication or an allusion to the consequences of failing to act. And we basically mentioned 3 examples of these consequences. The first one was basically, we could summarize it by saying mankind gets punished indiscriminately. When people see wrong things happening and they don't say anything, they just let it be, they let it ride. One of the things that happens, one of the consequences, is a man gets punished indiscriminately. And we supported that with an ayah and hadith. Anybody remember the ayah? Anybody remember the ayah from Surah Al-Anfal? أحسنت واتقوا فتنة لا تصيبن الذين ظلموا منكم خاصة. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and beware of a tribulation that will not afflict the wrongdoers exclusively. And then, as an extension of that, when this verse was heard by al-Mu'mineen Zainab bin Jahash, when she heard the Prophet reciting it shocked her. She was taken aback. She asked the Prophet, she said, Ya Rasulullah, anahlik wa fina salihun. She said, O Messenger of Allah, are we to understand from this that we're going to be ruined, we're going to perish, we're going to be destroyed, while there are righteous people among us? There are people who pray, people who fast, and people who mind their own business, people who give zakat. These righteous people are amongst us. Does that mean the good people are here, so we're still going to be destroyed? And the Prophet said, Na'am, idha kathrul khabath. He said, yes, if evil pervades and wickedness goes unchecked. So that was the first consequence we said. Another consequence, we could summarize it by saying that one of the forms of punishment that will be afflicted is that our prayers will not be answered. And we mentioned the hadith of Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you Muslims, you believers will either command the good and forbid the evil, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be on the verge of sending an affliction upon you and a punishment from himself. And then you will offer prayers. You will pray to Allah, but those prayers will not be answered. And then the third consequence that we mentioned is that what we allow to go around and afflict others will come around and afflict us. And we use an anecdote to illustrate that. Does anybody remember the anecdote? You don't have to give me the whole deal, but just does anybody remember what the anecdote centered around? Who were the characters? The three bulls. The anecdote of the three bulls shows us that what we allow to go around and afflict others, dunaka fakulu. Eat him. We won't stand in your way, right? We allow it to go around. So what happens ultimately? It comes around. And all of these examples that we gave of the consequences can all be summarized into one consequence they can all be summarized by a wise man's words who said, all that is required for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing. Right? Evil wins. Right? Evil wins whether the righteous people are punished, whether the righteous people, their prayers aren't answered, or the righteous people, whatever they let go around, does what ultimately comes around. At the end of the day, what happens in all those cases? Evil wins. Evil triumphs when good men do nothing. So then we mentioned that when you take all of this together, what we learn from it is that we are urged by our faith to be good men who act. And there are 3 levels to acting. There are 3 levels to the requirement to put a stop to evil. As the Prophet said in the hadith, فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. Let him stop it with what? With his hand. Let him physically put a stop to it. فَلَمْ يَسْتَطِيعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. If he can't do it, then what? With his tongue. Let him speak out about it. فَلَمْ يَسْتَطِيعْ, the third one, فَبِقَلْبِهِ. Then he should stop it with what? With his heart. And part of the beauty of Islam, one of the great things about this awesome religion that we have been privileged to be a part of, is that we are never tasked beyond our bandwidth. We are never tasked, never asked to do anything beyond our capacity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the hadith, the Prophet told Imran ibn Hussein, Salli qa'iman. He said, pray standing. This is how you should pray. فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِيعْ فَقَائِدًا. He said, but if you can't, then what? Then you can do so seated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the fasting people. He says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. He says, whoever amongst you is sick, or he's traveling, فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Then he can what? He can suspend the fast and fast from other days. And he goes on to say, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And for those people who can fast, but they experience a great deal of hardship, then let them not fast. And let them do what? Let them feed a poor person instead. So this religion is a religion where Allah never asks any individual or any group to do anything beyond their individual capacities. But it is important to note that we are not completely absolved from responsibility either. We are all capable of hating evil. So we are all required to hate evil. Y'all see that? And that's why the Prophet said, when he came to hating it in your heart, he said, وَذَلِكَ أَضْعُفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That is the least of faith, the weakest of faith. We reiterate and we say that we are urged to be good. We're urged to be good at the core. Good at the core. Meaning, urged to be good-hearted people. That's the most important thing, is to have a clean heart, a good heart, a pure heart. But we're also encouraged to be good to the core. And this is very important as well. It means our goodness must not be superficial or a facade, like the hypocrites. The people who, they come to you and they appear to be good, but inside they're not really good. Their inside is rotten. We're not supposed to be those type of good people, the people who pretend to be good. They feign goodness, but they're not really good to the core. As the Prophet said in the hadith, أَلَا فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةٌ إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ. He said, surely there is in the body a lump of flesh that if it is pure, and if it is pure, and if it is clean, and if it is upright, then the whole body will be pure, clean, and upright. And everything the body does will be clean, pure, and upright. And if it is foul, the whole body and everything it does will be foul, and it is the heart. And there should be no surprise, brothers and sisters, that the Prophet would say that about the heart. That he would say that, وَذَلِكَ أَضْعُفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That hating it in your heart is the weakest of faith, because you got to think, as the Prophet said in the hadith we just mentioned, everything starts from where? This starts from the heart. The heart is the root of what? The root of the actions. There can be no stopping it with your hand. There can be no stopping it with your tongue if you don't already hate it in your heart. If you don't first hate the act of wrongdoing. And if a person doesn't despise and disapprove of the act of wrongdoing in his heart, he has no faith or lacks the required faith in this what? In this particular regard. That's the meaning of when the Prophet said, وَذَلِكَ أَضْعُفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That after that, in this particular circumstance, there is nothing left. As he said in the other hadith, وَلَيْسَ وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ مِنْ الْإِيمَانِ حَبَّةُ خَرْدَلٍ. طيب. So now, this concept, we hear it all the time. You have to hate it in your heart. You have to despise it in your heart. That's the weakest. That's the least of faith. That's the weakest of faith. So what does that mean in practice, though? What does it mean in practice? And this is the thing, too. A lot of people think that it means something, and their understanding of what it means is incomplete. It's not consistent with what it really means. So hating it in the heart, it requires what? It requires three things. Hating it in your heart, or stopping the evil with your heart, requires three things. The first one, كراهة المنكر وبغضه. The second one, أن يتمنى القدرة على تغييره. And the third one is مفارقة المكان والمشاركين فيه. So the first one is you have to be disgusted and repulsed by the wrongdoing. You have to be disgusted and repulsed by the wrongdoing. Whatever people are doing that's wrong that you witness, you become aware of, you have to be disgusted and repulsed on the inside. So for example, nowadays there's some very common munkarat, some very common acts of wrong that are done a lot nowadays. And we're bombarded with it every day. Lying. Lying is one of the most common wrongdoings. And there's a particular person who will remain nameless, who lives in a big white house, who lived there for 4 years and then took 4 years off and then returned to that house. And the first 4 years that he lived in that house, people were tracking, because he was so given to lying, they were tracking his lies. And after 4 years in office, it is estimated that he told over 34,000 lies in a 4-year span that were caught on record. That doesn't count the lies that he told off the record. So lying, cheating, backbiting, slander, hypocrisy, fraud, corruption, let alone murder and kidnapping and neo-colonialism and the sexual assault of children. When we hear about these things, we as believers, we have to be disgusted. We have to be appalled. We have to disapprove internally, inside. Immediately, there should be a visceral reaction on the inside that we're against these things. We're angry. We're outraged. Number two, to wish that we had the power to change it. And by extension, to feel disappointment and sadness because of our inability to put a stop to the wrongdoing. You should actually be in your feelings. You should be upset. You should be a little bit depressed that you can't what? I can't do anything. We shouldn't be the people who don't feel anything. We see it, we hear it, and we're just like, what can I do? What can I do? No, you should feel a little frustration, internal frustration that you can't do anything. You wish that you could do something. And then last but not least, to distance oneself from the space where the wrongdoing is taking place, and to disassociate with the people who are committing the act of wrongdoing. And this part right here, this is the part that a lot of people don't get. That they think that I can hate the munkar and still associate with the people who do it. I can hate the consumption of alcohol, and then when I'm invited to a barbecue by my next door neighbor and everybody's drinking, I can sit amongst them. I can sit amongst them, and there's nothing wrong with that, because inside myself I'm saying, I hate this, I hate what they're doing. No, you have to disassociate yourself from those people, and you have to remove yourself from what? From the space where that thing is happening. Otherwise, you haven't completed the process. You haven't really hated it in your heart. That's part of what the Prophet meant when he said that. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. It's also important to say, and I have to stress and emphasize this, because it's another thing that I think a lot of Muslims don't wrap their heads around, that this hating is the wajib of the one who cannot do otherwise. It is the wajib. It is what is expected of him. It is not a meaningless exercise. A lot of people think, well, when you look on the surface of it, me and the guy who did nothing, you can't see a difference between the two of us. He didn't change it with his hand, neither did I. He didn't change it with his tongue, neither did I. So when you look at us, you don't see any difference. But there is a big difference. What's going on internally is a big difference. That matters. It matters to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's going on? As we said, there is a certain lump of flesh in the body that what? Is the root of all things. It's the center of all things. It's the most important thing. That matters to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have to understand that in order for us to keep our faith intact, it depends on that. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That's the weakest of faith. وَلَيْسَ وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ حَبَّةُ خَرْدَلٍ. There is not even a mustard seed's weight of faith after that. Then we mentioned in the khutbah, toward the end of it, we mentioned that there is so much evil in the world right now. And a lot of us may feel overwhelmed. May say that basically asking me to hate all the evil that I see and become a witness to, especially since I carry something in my pocket that what? That houses all of that. That's asking too much. I can't hate all this evil. And one of the things I wanted to highlight, it's very, very important to highlight, because it's related to this whole concept of reassessing and re-examining who's a good person and how do we gauge a good person and who do we give that moniker to and who do we refuse to give it to, is there's a lot of evil in the homeland. There's a lot of evil in the land in which we live. There's a lot of evil in America. And this is part of that re-examination and reassessment process. what we need to be doing on a daily basis here, Juan, is we're confronted with all this evil, particularly evil that's done by this country or evil that this country aids and abets in its commission, is we need to be asking ourselves every time we experience something or see something, what is happening? What is really happening? Not the spin. Not the spin, not what people are telling us happened. Oh, she tried to run the officer over. She was dragging him under her car. This is the spin. That's not what happened. What actually happened? We have to ask ourselves, what actually happened? Then once we answer that question, what actually happened, is it evil? Is it evil by their standards or by the standards of our deen? Right? Somebody calls it self-defense, somebody calls it murder. What does our religion say? And then what does our religion say about that? Then by that, who's responsible? Who's responsible for that? We have to ask ourselves, who is responsible ultimately? And then we have to ask ourselves one last question: how do I feel about it? And how do I feel about them? This is really, really important. This is where a lot of us, again, we miss the dunk, so to speak. It's like, this is what happened. I got that. And this is who's responsible. I got that. And we know what the religion says I should feel about it or feel about them, but we say something. We say something different. We start to excuse. We start to defend. We start to engage in spin ourselves. Then we said in the khutbah, we said, brothers and sisters, we asked the question, we said, brothers and sisters, what makes a good man a good man? His outside or his inside? His belongings or his beliefs? His complexion or his character? That was the question we asked in the khutbah, and we wanted everybody to kind of internalize that question, turn inward and answer that question. What makes a good man a good man? Is it his outside or his inside? His belongings or his beliefs? His complexion or his character? And the reason why we need to be asking that question is because we have a common tendency to make a mistake, a certain mistake, and that is centering who instead of what. And when we center who instead of what, that blurs our vision in terms of determining whether a person is really good or not. And I'm going to expand on that because I know right now it's kind of like not clear, but I'm going to make it clear. So basically what we have a tendency to do by centering who instead of what is that something happens. That if we did not know who the players were, we did not know who we did not know who the players in the scenario were. If that thing happened without knowing who is involved, we would say it was what? It was bad. As soon as we know who the players are, we stop thinking about the what and we focus on the who, and then the who then determines whether it's bad or not. Give you a more specific example. A few months back, there were two state lawmakers at home with their spouses. State lawmakers from Minnesota. A man came to their home who was a conservative and a supporter of far-right conservatism. He came, he was armed. He came to one of the homes and he shot the lawmaker and her spouse and their dog and unalived all of them. He went to another house of another lawmaker and their spouse and shot them too. He critically wounded them, but they survived. Okay? So this happened. You don't know the names. You don't know who's who. When you think about that, you say, that's murder. That's a crime. That's wrong. But once people found out that this person was a far-right conservative who did the murder, or the murders, and the people he murdered were liberals, not only did they defend what he did, they made fun of it. They made light of it. They posted memes on social media about it. They made fun of it. Then a few months later, those same people, a man was murdered. He was at a college in Utah. He was speaking to thousands of students. And he was murdered, and it was caught on video. It was a very horrific crime that was committed. قدام الناس, in front of everybody. قدام العالم. And when you hear about that, you don't know who the players are. You say, that's awful. That's terrible, right? But then when you know who it is, that this person was a far-right conservative, he was racist, he was misogynistic, he was this, that, and the third, then people who support that would say that, this is bad, but those who don't support it would celebrate. I say all this to say, similarly, nowadays, this country is committing a lot of crimes, man. It's committing a lot of crimes. It's doing a lot of wrong things. And it is giving a free pass, giving pardons to people who've committed heinous crimes and have harmed many people. It is giving special treatment to people who have harmed young people, innocent young people, many of them, traffic them and basically put them in the hands of predators, etc. and so on. It is funding a genocide, which is still going on. I know that what's going on in Palestine has been pushed from the front page to the back page, but you need to know that ceasefire is, to call it a joke would be being kind. They are killing Palestinians every day in large numbers. They have banned all of the aid agencies. Those people are continuing to starve. It is winter there. Some of them are freezing to death. They don't have water. They don't have medicine. They don't have places to live. And they're continuing to destroy homes in Gaza. They're continuing to destroy, to make it unlivable, to ensure that Gaza is unlivable. They're doing that. But there's just so many other things going on that the news isn't covering it. And then obviously TikTok was purchased. That was, the main source of truth on this issue. And now that's not there anymore. Or it's not what it used to be. Al-Muhim, I say all this to say is that, and then obviously what happened on Wednesday into Thursday with the killing of the woman in Minneapolis at the hands of the cold people. The cold people. I say all this to say that what we have done, I say we as a community, just the Muslim community, we have bought into the whole concept of American exceptionalism. Whenever America does anything, because it's American, because they're inherently good, they're the good guys, no matter what they do. And we can't do that in Islam. What Islam tells us to do is to center what, not who. Is it right to put sanctions on a country that will strangle its economy? It will create extremely high inflation. It will make living unaffordable. And to prevent that country from using its primary resources to create economic prosperity for its people and to self-determine through those sanctions. And then ultimately, when those sanctions do not force the leadership in that country to give you what you want, you close all immigration from that country. Now, I'm going to ask you honestly, if you lived in a place where there was 50%, 60% inflation, and basic medicine and basic needs you couldn't afford, and life was unlivable, would you try to migrate from there? Would you try to leave there? Yeah, those people are going to naturally try to leave there. So basically, you create conditions where it's unlivable, then you deny the people the ability to go someplace else where they can live. Again, what you're trying to do, you're trying to create a situation where it's a powder keg, it explodes, and the people are forced to what? To surrender and give you their resources. When they don't do that, is it appropriate to go there and occupy that country and kidnap its president? Is that okay? Is that okay to do that? Does it matter who does that? Does the person, no matter who they are, if they do that, they're wearing the white hat? See, this is the problem with centering the who. We got to center the what. That's not right. That's not right. And you got nations across the world who are saying this goes against international law. You got experts here. There's a guy named Jeffrey Sachs, I think his name is Jeffrey Sachs. He was invited to the UN, and he spoke on this. He spoke on this exact scene and said the words that I just said to the whole assembly with the United States ambassador right there. And he himself is a U.S. citizen. He's saying, hey, this is what we've done. And what we're doing, that's wrong. It goes against international law. And these bodies need to stand up for international law. I say all this to say, similarly, a lot of people in this country who are not Muslim, they, again, center the who. They center the who. They see what's going on in Israel, in Palestine, I should say, in occupied Palestine. They see what's going on over there. And if they were to see that anywhere else, for example, if they were to see it in Ukraine, because there's a lot of parallels between occupied Palestine and occupied Ukraine. When it's happening in Ukraine, we have to do something. We have to put a stop to this. And when it happens in Gaza, it's like, this is okay. Why? Because we're centering the who again. Right? The Israelis can't be wrong. They're always wearing the white hat. They're inherently pure. Y'all see that? We Muslims can't fall into that. Sometimes we do it with America. We love America. We love America. You got Muslims, and this is something I could never do. And I understand everybody has a different experience, and I'm not criticizing or dry criticizing certain people. So you have Muslims with the American flag on their dashboard in the car, man. You come to their house and it's an American flag on their porch, man. I could never do that. And I'm born and raised here. I've been ungentled. I could never do that. I could never do that. If I bought a jacket, I really would like the jacket. You got some jacket you get, like a puffer jacket, right? And then they'll put like different patches on it. If I had a puffer jacket, I was like, man, this thing is fly. I gotta have that. But it had an American flag on it. I would rip that thing off. I would buy the jacket and rip that off. I couldn't wear the. I couldn't do that. So I say all this to say, coming back to full circle, we love America. Oh, America's great. It's the greatest country in the world. Blah 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 blah. Okay, if you believe that, that's your right to believe that. That's how you've experienced America. That's fine. But you got to be honest with yourself again when we talk about when we see evil. من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فلم يستطع فبلسانه فلم يستطع بقلبه. You got to be honest. Am I seeing evil? And you got to stop centering the who. And somehow, because America is doing it, it's not wrong. I'm going to twist myself into a pretzel trying to defend what America is doing. Those bombs that are falling on the Palestinians, that are taking Palestinian life. You know how many kids have been killed since 2023? 17 to 18,000. You know how many kids have been killed in Ukraine since 2023? 693. 693 kids in Ukraine. 17 to 18,000 kids. Babies. I say all this to say is that you can't, it was U.S. bombs that did that. U.S. bullets that did that. U.S. F-16s and Apaches that did that. We can't say it's okay, it's all right, because why? Because of the who. No, we don't center the who, we center the what. The what. We center the what. What was done? Is it evil? Then the people who did it did evil. What they did was evil. We call it what it is. The last thing we close with this is that we said that a good man who sees evil and does nothing, doesn't even hate it in his heart, makes no attempt to distance himself from it, doesn't even see evil as evil in the first place. Such a man is not a good man. And this was for us. This is for us because ultimately we're going to meet Allah and be judged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Each one of us needs to make sure that we are a good man or a good person. And we went on to say that that person is no better than those who do the immoral and amoral acts they refuse to denounce. They're no different from them. And we supported that with the ayah from Surah An-Nisa and the statement of the scholars explaining it, in which they said, Ar-Radi bid-Dam kafa'ili, the one who is pleased with the sin is no different than the one who commits the sin. And so the last thing that I want to say as we close out is, this is a question for all of us. Am I a good person? You can't be a good person and support evil. You can't be a good person and support evil. You can't be a good person and you wear the hat that promotes evil. You wear the t-shirt that promotes evil. You got the lawn sign that promotes evil. You got the bumper sticker that promotes evil. This is very, very important. I'm going to ask you honestly. If I came to the masjid and I had a shirt with Jeffrey Epstein on it, even if you didn't say anything to me, how would you feel about that? Be honest, it's not a rhetorical question. What do y'all think?
I wouldn't look at you the same way again.
You would never look at me the same again. Jazakallah khair, Rabi, for your honesty. Huh? What would you think? What would you say? What would you feel? That's just a shirt. I had to put something on. I couldn't come out with my bare chest.
You got it on sale.
Yeah, it's definitely on sale. Nobody's selling that for full price. But you're not going to hear none of those excuses. You're going to say, man, if you really didn't have no other shirty, man, turn it inside out. The fact that you wear that with his face on it, it's as if what? It's as if you're okay with it. You approve of it. You support it. So what about somebody who has the occupant's bumper sticker, who has the occupant's lawn sign, has the occupant's red hat? Come on, man. Come on. It's not compatible with everything that we talked about and everything this person is doing. You can't make it make sense. You can't justify it. Get a different hat. And what do we need the lawn sign for? The election was a year ago. And even if you still, you say, well, I want to voice my support. Why do you want to support that? Again, don't center the who, center the what. Is 34 felonies evil? Is that evil or not? You got to ask yourself. Is fraud evil? Is corruption evil? Is pay for play? People can actually buy a pardon. Is that okay? It's like, we can go on and on. I'm not going to go on and on. I'm just trying to make the point that, look, man, I'm not a good person. I can't be a good person if I support evil. I can't be a good person if I'm wearing the Epstein shirt. I can't. And so we have to ask ourselves, and don't say, well, I always vote conservative. Okay, you voted conservative, which that doesn't really make sense if you know anything about politics. That's just something we say. There's no conservative. All the things they say they believe in. They say they believe in small government. They believe in states' rights. They're not practicing none of that. But I say all that to say is that once you see what's happening, you have to distance yourself from that. I thought the person was a good person. Okay, well, you thought. Now you have all the evidence in the world to say otherwise. What are you going to do about that? Am I a good person? If I'm a good person, I can't support evil. And with that, brothers and sisters, I bring my remarks on the khutbah to a close. Are there any questions, comments, or critiques? You look like you have your hand up kind of, Yusuf, like you like that at the auction, brother. And you know if you do it at the auction, so they're going to get you. Exactly. They're going to sell it to you. So we'll start with Yusuf and then we'll go to Brother Hatem. Tafadhal, Yusuf. Let me see. I don't know if these are working today or not, but we're going to try. Oh, yeah. Tafadhal. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
To really address the point that you just made, if you flip two things, just two things.
Yeah, put that mic to you. Yeah.
So we know a certain group of people in West Asia, North Africa, attempted to justify their genocide by saying that there are no innocent people here, including 17 to 18,000 children. By that standard, that means there are no innocent people here. Not only this genocide, but all the others that have been committed just since World War II. We're not even talking about the entire 250-year history, official history of this place. That standard should apply. The second thing is it's a good standard or a good way to deal with somebody who wants to be confrontational about justifying the actions of government or individuals, especially when it comes to the same group of people we were just talking about in West Asia and North Africa, that rogue nation. And I would ask, especially people here, would you tolerate an outside power, let's say China, all of a sudden giving ear to and support to the Native American population? And say, okay, we'll back you militarily to come and take all the land and so forth. Would you tolerate that? Of course, the answer is heck no. We're going to fight. But these people have no reason, no right to fight. The hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
And hypocrisy is evil. That hypocrisy itself is something that should make us incensed. This is the thing. It's like that hypocrisy right there. That if the shoe was on the other foot, and somebody said, "Hey, they got resources, and we would love to possess those resources and really use them for our own benefit," that's something that's unspeakable. It's unthinkable. Nobody will entertain that at all. And people become very, very angry by the suggestion. But we do it to others. And somehow, some way, it's legitimate. It's legitimized. And so, like you said, that hypocrisy itself, when you as a person, as a Muslim, when you see that hypocrisy, you see that right there, that should make you angry. You should hate that. At the very, very least, you're upset about it. You're outraged internally by the fact that by that arrogance. But by that arrogance and by that entitlement, we are entitled to everything. We're entitled to everything. We have a right to own it. And the people involved are collateral damage. They are insignificant. They are irrelevant. You guys see that? And this is the other thing too, is that look at the most recent occupations. The one that comes to my mind most recently is Iraq. Okay? Talk to Iraqis. Talk to people who are from Iraq and who have lived in Iraq, or have people who were family who are still living in Iraq, about what the situation is on the ground in Iraq. Okay? You could kind of throw Libya in there too. Libya is beyond a failed state. Libya is a place where you can say what you want to say about Gaddafi. It was a place where when you get to a certain age, the government gives you a home. The government gives you a home.
That's the worst.
The government gives you a home. They had education. They had, modern road system. They had
Socialism is bad.
Huh?
But socialism is bad.
But you get the point. Is that but you get the point of saying they go from what to what, and then the sad thing again, the way that we are gaslit, and the way that our intelligence is insulted. They can't even get the story straight about Venezuela, brother. It's like 1 minute it's like we're practicing neo-imperialism. We are a superpower, and we have the right to take and own everything. The Venezuelan people. It's about them. It's like, brother, you started out sincere and telling the truth about what your real agenda was. Don't come now and talk about it. You don't care about the Venezuelan people. You've been choking them out. You've been choking them out for decades. You don't care about the people at all. The people are just what? They're a pawn. And so it's very sad, but I just want to hit on that point that you made without going too far, because I had to want to say something. Is that hypocrisy, man? That right there, that should be enough to make our blood boil. Just the hypocrisy and how we're gaslit and our intelligence is insulted on a regular basis. And this for me, but not for thee, right? That type of thing, man. And to think that these are the good people. These are the good people. تفضل تحت. Yusuf, you want to give him the microphone a second? Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I just wanted to mention two hadiths that are pertinent to the topic, inshallah. Two Hasan hadiths. One of them is إذا عملت الخطيئة في الأرض, if the wrongdoing is done upon the earth, كان من شهدها فكرهها كمن غاب عنه, and the one who witnesses it but hates it is as the one who is absent. ومن غاب عنها فرضيها كان كمان شهد. And the one who is absent from it but is content with it is like the one who witnesses. So, and the problem with witnessing the wrongdoing is emphasized in the next hadith, which is also Hasan hadith. لا يتخذن أحدكم موقفا يقتل فيه رجلا ظلما. That none of you stand where a person is killed unjustly. فإن اللعنة تنزل على من حضر حين لم يدفعه عنه. For verily the curse would descend on the one who was present when they did not defend
and did nothing about it.
ولا يتخذن أحدكم موقفا يضرب فيه رجلا ظلما. And let none of you stand where one is beaten unjustly. فإن اللعنة تنزل على من حضر حين لم يدفعه. For verily the curse would descend on the one who was present but did not defend him. So this basically also emphasizes, like I said, what you're talking about. And I think a lot of people might say, well, of course, this has to do with somebody who's present, who's able to do something, to do something. But at any rate, doing something, I mean, somebody might think, well, I might get hurt, somebody will be hurt or something, intervene, something will happen to me. But really, I mean, we know from the Qadr of Allah that the person's lifestyle and his provisions are predetermined for him. So doing the right thing does not change the lifestyle of the person. Neither does it change his provisions. So the person does the right thing. It's not going to, his lifestyle is already predetermined. But he does that. There is no, as I would say, there's no decision that one can do or not do that can change his lifestyle. There's no action that one can do or not do that can change his lifestyle. And there's nothing that the person can do or not do that can change his provisions. So really what we should focus about in all of these situations, doing the right thing. So really that belief in Qadr is, like I said, simplifies our decision-making process. Just do the right thing. Don't worry about what people worry about in terms of their lifestyle being affected or provisions being affected.
Jazakallah khair. I'll piggyback off what you said, and I'll mention something that I recently heard that I thought was very, very poignant and powerful. And that is that bravery or courage is not that you're not afraid. It is not being afraid. Courage is doing the right thing even though you're afraid, despite being afraid. And unfortunately, a lot of us have lost courage, but we really, really have lost the basic courage, the basic, bare minimum of intestinal fortitude, just to say, hey, this is wrong. And a lot of times, what we think is at stake is not really at stake. Or what we think is at stake, but it isn't as valuable as the value we've assigned to it. So for example, let's say I work at a company and I have some colleagues and we have a good relationship. I've got some Jewish colleagues, I've got some Christian colleagues, I've got some atheist colleagues, and we have a good working relationship. And I'm worried if I really say how I feel about the genocide in Israel, or if I really say what I feel about the Epstein files, or I really say what I feel about the occupant of the White House, that is going to kind of undermine that relationship. We're not going to be as cordial, and we're not going to be as warm and welcoming. We're not going to work together as cohesively as we did before I made those opinions public. I convinced myself of this, and I'm so afraid of that I withhold, I refrain. They say things in front of me that I really, really don't like, I don't agree with, but I just swallow my opinions, I mute myself, and I say nothing out of fear of what? Undermine that relationship. Perhaps I have overvalued that relationship, and perhaps I have also convinced myself of something which is not true. How many times have people told their colleagues what they really think? They had the courage to do that. And their colleagues, despite not agreeing with them, respect them. You see that? So we were running from something that wasn't going to happen anyway. And so it's like we need to have a little bit more courage. I can understand being afraid because we live in a society where they are trying to make us afraid. And we've seen people suffer the consequences of doing something. We saw that on Wednesday. We've seen the consequences of people who just what? Who just said something. They spoke up. I don't know if you guys remember the one senator who went to one of the hearings to ask questions, which he's authorized to do given his position as a senator. And you saw how they threw him down in his face and handcuffed him and dragged him on. Y'all remember that? So we've seen the consequences of people who spoke up. Right? And so some of us are like, hey, look, man, there's anecdotal evidence to support the fact that we should be afraid. I can understand being afraid, but some of us are we're overly afraid. We're overly afraid. And at the end of the day, you make a good point. And there's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot of nuance to that. I wouldn't agree with you entirely without mentioning some nuance, but I'm not going to go there. But what I'll say is this: you make a good point that ultimately what's going to happen has already been decreed. And if I'm going to be taken to the slaughter, I'm going like a lion. I'm not going like a lamb. This is the thing. If I'm going to the slaughter, I'm going like a lion. I'm not going like a lamb. This is the thing that a lot of us need to, embody that spirit and not be cowed into going to the slaughter like a lamb. If you're going to be slaughtered anyway, go out with what? With courage. Oh, that's right. You didn't go over there and get married, did you? Elijah, you didn't come back with a Ghanaian queen, did you?
No problem.
You don't want to answer it. You don't want to answer that. You know what that means, Dr. Ali.
I'll say this, yes. the demand is returned, and I just got here, not even, maybe just a little bit more than 2 weeks. And over there is a total different universe, right? And it's very peaceful there, extremely peaceful. Everybody, I come back and I say, man, you look so good. You look healthy. You lose weight, you look good, you look fit. You know, there's no processed food there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be too long-winded, but it was funny because I didn't eat no junk food for an entire month. And I didn't really realize until I came back, like, I didn't eat no junk food. But then I was like, there was no junk food to eat. I didn't see no junk food.
Yeah.
So before I left, I told my brother and sister, I said, you know what? I don't see junk food here. But in America, the whole store is junk food. And they look at me like, are you serious? I'm thinking to myself, am I serious? I said, yeah. So I looked up 7-Eleven, the inside the store, I said, look. I thought about that. I said, hey, what kind of psychology is this? 99% of 7-Eleven is all junk. And if it ain't junk, it's tobacco and alcohol, which is more junk. And then they got bananas at the front counter. Here's a little bananas for you at the front counter. You see, and when I come back here, I start hearing the most bogus, extreme things in the news and from people speaking about the news they've seen. I said, man, I don't want to be here at all. I don't want to be here at all. And even my sister in Ghana, she spoke about what you were speaking about with the lady in Minneapolis. She told me that today. So I said, what are you talking about? I said, I ain't never heard. I mean, I'm gonna be just frank about it. I ain't never heard of a white police officer killing a white woman. I've never heard that before. This is what she said to me. I said, how are you talking about? I can understand she's a black woman. You said, what? You said, what? I said, what are you talking about? I don't even know this. And this is coming from the country that I just came from. You see, and it's just, like you said, it's just evil. Compound on evil, compound on evil. But I will say this. We're talking about the matters of the heart. And I said it before. There's so much evil in this land. And if you read the history about it, your bandwidth could not process it. Your bandwidth as an individual, you could not process that. And so with that being said, we have to be even more vigorous and more vigilant in our faith in Allah. We have to be more vigilant in our faith in Allah and not compromise to this evil. Because I'm seeing a lot of compromisation with these things. And that's the main thing I want to address. Like, you know, it's just, you know, like you said, I 100% agree with you. I'm going to burn the American flag in my front yard before I ever set it up. You see what I'm saying? So
I didn't say that.
So I said that. Right? So like, you know what I mean by that is I'm not compromising.